AIVANHOV, Portugal. September 21, 2019. Part 1. Well, dear friends, I'm extremely happy to be able to come among you. First of all, I convey to you my blessings and I also embrace your love. So, as usual, I have come, not to give you new things, but rather to try to answer your questions, and to help you on this path of discovering your truth. So, if you don't mind, we'll start listening to what you have to ask. So, dear friend, I'll let you ask the first questions you have. The first one. Sister. Hello. Our dear AYOUN, I am the spokesperson for the questions and I will start with the first question. Question. What energy alterations, the body, when it dies, is its soul dissociated from the mind or do we immediately move on to another level? I'm not sure understood the request correctly. I heard, but what does it mean, when the body dies, what's the connection? Sister. The question, I mean that deep down, when the body dies, the soul is dissociated from the spirit. What does it mean the soul is dissociated from the spirit? That's what I don't understand, it doesn't mean anything. Sister. I don't know if anyone here in the room has asked the question, if they can shed any light. When the body dies, there is dissociation of the body, first of all, from the etheric body, which also dissolves in 40 days, and until a short time ago, when about 10 years ago, the soul was placed at rest, in stasis, in intermediate dimensions, in order to be ready to experience the dissolution of the soul at the time of the events. So, the dissociation soul, spirit in this question, I do not understand, you have to ask the person what he means by that. Sister. Anyone want to say something on this issue, where can we move forward? Because what is asked is what happens to the soul and the spirit? Or I didn't understand what the question is. Sister. I think that's what the person wants to know. So, I have already answered in part, but now, thanks to both the dissociation and dissolution of the interference fringes at the subtle level, the mirror image of the soul no longer exists. That is why those who had already been dying for almost 10 years, found themselves and protected themselves, in a way, from the intervention of astral forces, illusory. That is, the so-called beings of light you see and everything you can find in the astral no longer exist. In order, precisely, to dissolve the soul and reveal the spirit. Like you live it when you live agape. The soul is not eternal, it is a medium, an intermediary, which has no use and which was linked to the involution of the earth into confinement. There is a very great difference between the illusory soul and the spirit that allows us to live the truth. The soul has never allowed the truth to be lived, despite the disappearance of the primary anomaly. The soul never has the possibility to disappear on its own. It is linked to the beliefs, to the memories of this world, which you call past lives, but it is as illusory as this body of flesh. And remember the teachings of Mayan and Amoy, 9 or 10 years ago, concerning the return of the soul and the dissolution of the soul. The soul, you must understand, grasp and live that it is precisely this soul that has prevented you from living the truth, that has made you believe in a need to evolve, with what you call karma. But the spirit and the truth, has no use for all this cinema. So, the goal is not to nourish the soul, but to consume it in the fire of love, in order to live agape. I would rather say, to let it be consumed, by the evidence of the light. The soul is but a well-disturbed, altered reflection of the vert. I'll also speak Portuguese, it'll be faster, maybe even faster. Sister. Thank you, OMA. Laughs. That's it, for the complicated words, I'll blow you the words in Portuguese, won't I? Sister. Thank you very much. There you go. I think I have answered that question. If the person who asked that question is here, he or she can confirm or not, that it was the spirit of the question and what was being asked. Otherwise, we move on to the next one. Sister. Another one from the same person and one more question. Question. Our brother Jean-Luc told us yesterday that talking about the past will put this energy in the aura and that later on, will come in the form of disease. Yes, of course. That is the, I would say, illusory and even vicious side of the soul. It is the acontic principle that introduced, through confinement, this kind of intermediary called soul, whose sole purpose was to keep you in confinement, in the deprivation of freedom and in the lack of love, and who immobilized you in this search for love, like all of us, even the ancients. While we all know that the only truth is the heart and nothing else, the soul is part of the involution forces that they wanted you to believe you had to overcome in order to find freedom. So, yes, whatever told you is the strict truth. As you know, the primary anomaly that has been resolved has allowed the soul to no longer nourish the body. It turns to the spirit and allows the spirit, at that moment, to manifest itself through the ordinary consciousness. And that's exactly what you're going through at this time, already for many months, even a few years. It is when the soul is consumed by the igneous fire of the spirit, that freedom, joy and agape are evident. As long as there is the slightest belief in having to evolve, to transform, to improve, it concerns only the individual, the person, and it is a total illusion. Whether it is ever, whether it is bided, whether it is everything you have lived on this earth for a short time, enlightens all this and puts an end to the deceit, to the lie of the soul, which has no reality except to lead you to reinforce, precisely, the confinement, to reinforce beliefs in any evolution. While you are living it, for many of you, you are perfect from all eternity. And as Ebba says, as Bhakti says, you dreamed, it was only a dream, an illusion, a deception. Accept this and you live the spirit. There is nothing to believe, there is nothing to think about, there is just to check, by silence, or by vibration, if you want, what you are, so that you are no longer fooled by all religions, beliefs, energies. In short, everything that takes place on the visible and even subtle aspect, on this world, has nothing to do with truth. As you have been told 1,000 times, you're only love, everything else is an illusion. And when you experience it, you can only accept the evidence. It puts an end to the wheel of karma, it puts an end to the pre-pre of the soul, and makes it possible to live the spirit in its entirety. It is the agape state, it is the fire of the sacred heart, it is the total inner freedom, no longer to depend on any story, any scenario, or any obstacle. The truth is naked. Of course, before this particular period that we have all been living for more than 30 years, there were many teachings on the soul, in all spiritual movements, in all consciences, because there was no real, concrete possibility of living the naked truth. Today, you will have access to it, through zero time, silence and embrace. Saying yes to the truth, in a way, is enough to live the truth. But the truth does not depend on your person, nor on any history in this world, or any world. That's right, agape. So, indeed, the soul brings you to the comparison with the past, with yesterday, with other brothers and sisters. It needs comparison, it needs to be measured. Wait. The spirit knows none of this. So yes, today, if you move away from the present instant, whether through thoughts, through sufferings, coming from your past, it represents an obstacle to agape. The only truth, and ever told you, is the present instant, it's here and now. Everything else can only turn you away from the truth. Whatever you think and whatever you live through, there is no freedom, either this body or in the soul. Freedom is the spirit of truth, the paraclete. Accepting this is already living it. It means easily getting rid of the weight of any past, so that the present instant is devoid of any concept, any memory, any history. Putting yourself in this posture, in this positioning, of the mind, of your body, this is what we call silence, allows you to receive the information of zero time, which is the alpha and the omega. But as long as you are interested in yesterday, or if yesterday seems to possess you in the present, you cannot live the totality of the absolute truth. The soul is a break, an obstacle, to the spirit. Only its dissolution makes you live the spirit of truth, the spirit of the sun, the choir of angels and the freedom of AYOUN. The stories you are living today are all made, thanks to the intelligence of the light, to avoid feeding the past, feeding suffering, regardless of your will. You have no other possibility than to settle down entirely in the present instant. Whatever you whisper to your mind, or your soul, it is not true. There is no freedom in there. There is only suffering, there is only history, there is only distance. The evidence will never be in there. This is the universal deception of the creation and confinement of this world. You must, as has been explained, but for years, become like a child again, totally present in the here and now. As Bhatti said, there is no effort to be made, and as long as you think you have to make an effort, it only concerns the soul and the person and only turns you away from truth and joy. There is no joy in the past, there are only weights in yesterday, there are only chimeras in tomorrow, dreams. You're anterior even to the dreamer, as Bhatti would say, forever. The only effort, if we can say so, is in all the components, in your presence here on this earth, which is oriented, focused, on the present instant. Because silence is in the present instant, and so is the truth, and nowhere else. Everything else is a lie, and you will have the same opportunity, to live it here on this earth. As Ekpa said, all you have to do is accept, embrace, and ask yourself no questions about anything about who you are. Save the questions for the practical aspects of your life, for everyday life, to solve what needs to be solved. But the spirit has no use for that. And it is the spirit that you are. You are before, and that's right, agape. It is to remember, to forget. That's why it's always called, the awakening of the dream. Whatever terminology you put behind it, it's always the same mechanism. It is up to you to verify this for yourself. It is not a question of energy, it is not a question of vibratory rise, it is not a question of vision, nor even of perception, but simply of accepting. That's the best word, I don't have a better one. Of course, when I was incarnate, the ultimate truth could only be sensed. And very young, moreover, after my fusion with the sun, I always said, at that time, that there was something after that, but that the time had not come. We were still, all of us, even Melchizedeks, somewhere, subject to time, to history. Only Bhatti, who lived the truth, escaped all history. And that's why he intervened at the end of the story we told you, in order to reveal the ultimate truth and the only truth. It is something you have to prove to yourself, but it will never be a job, it will never be a discipline, in the spiritual sense. You can meditate for years, you will never find the truth. You can find the peace of the person, you can enlighten your person, your soul, it is personal development. But I remind you that there is no one, except the dreamers, who believed that the dream was real. Because we had all forgotten, and there was no possibility. Look at Christ, he is real in history. He said, me and my Father are one. That was the first step. And the last step. Me and the Father are the same thing. There is no distance. It is when you realize this, that you escape all conditioning, all habits of the embodied soul, and also, that you put an end, without deciding anything, to the illusion of consciousness. What I mean by that is that consciousness cannot be eternal. Only truth is eternal. And this truth has no use for stories, worlds, shapes, colors. It's time zero. Really and concretely, today, you all have, whatever your point of departure, the same possibility, the same capacity, to be the truth, you see. And I know that you have more and more incarnate brothers and sisters, who tell you the same thing. Beyond any history, any conditioning, what do they tell you? Agape. Or they are in the silence of the embracing, they have nothing more to demonstrate, they have nothing to prove, they have nothing more to try to convince, to seduce. In other words, truth is self-sufficient. But how can you be true, live the truth that you are, if you continue to nourish the nightmares of the past? They affect you in the present only, because you believe in them. It means that, somewhere, if you don't live agape right now, everything is perfect. And it also means that somewhere down the line, you think you're this story, this form, or part of this world. That's all. That's all. You do not have to fight against anything, you do not have to oppose anything, and certainly not oppose the illusion, what is happening, otherwise, you feed this illusion. There is no way out except inherent now, in the heart of the heart, where there is no place for a story, for emotions, for any future. The real joy, she's naked. You will only find it in the present moment, where you disappear, where there is no one. Everything else is just a trick, not of you, but of the history of confinement and also of the history of the dream of creation. There is nothing to prove, there is nothing to demonstrate, it is not a mathematical equation, since it is not of this world and no law of this world can ever explain it. Accept that everything is false and you will live the truth. There is nothing to run away from, there are no privileged or particular conditions to live it. There is no difference in age, gender, health, emotional or other conditions. Truth is totally independent of this. Verify, live it. That's what I said. At the time, I said fear or love, but you have seen that for many months now, we have changed the expression. It was love or suffering, knowing that there is very little distance between suffering and love and that in certain situations, suffering of any kind will allow you to let go of your last beliefs, your last hopes for any future. And the paradox is that if you live it, it means that it will make you available to live the dream with ease, precisely because you live it as a dream. At that moment, you are no longer involved and it is the intelligence of the light that directs the dream, so that it allows awakening. You're in the embracing, there is no more resistance, that's what the agape state is all about. It is much more than processes of expansion of consciousness, it is much more than vibratory ascents, it is much more than visions or perceptions, it is the ultimate truth, there is no other. Everything else today, in the particular circumstances of the earth, represents only obstacles, breaks, decoy, to which you still adhere, somewhere. But when I say you're here, it is not you as a spirit, but you as incarnate persons. The evidence is something that is accepted, that cannot be demonstrated or explained by the intellect, by words and by vibrations. Time zero does not need energy, time zero does not need time, time zero, in a way, awaits you. But you can't take anything from this world. As when we died in the womb, we could not take any clothes, house or money with us. In the same way, for the spirit, you cannot take away any story, any joy, any suffering, any scenario. It is something that is to be lived and that can be lived by anyone. In short, we can say that it is only the resistance of habits, beliefs, that you would call conscious or unconscious. It doesn't change anything. To be available for the truth is to remain in this inner silence. I am not only talking about silence of what or having my eyes closed, that silence is an external silence. He who is in inner silence cannot be disturbed by noise, by visions, by perceptions. That's a big difference. When we talk about silence, we are not talking about silencing your words, or meditating. Silence is embracing. Silence is acceptance. Silence is zero time, when you are own and when you realize that it is the same as the alpha, as Ego would say, you see. Come on, we'll continue. One more question, please. Question. What could we do when someone comes to share or talk with us about their past? What can we do when we stay with the rage and start throwing everything that bothers us out? Dear Grandpa, thank you very much for your love, for the infinite patience, and to all those who are with you. We all know, even the incarnate brothers and sisters who live agape, that the past, if only the past instant, follows you to the trace, not to mention the wounds. There too, when someone comes to talk to you about his past, welcome, and you will eat his past through the welcome. You don't have to tell him in reaction that it's useless, that all this doesn't exist, because for him, it really exists, he suffers from it in the present. Give him a full embrace. Place yourself, I would say, in this posture of embrace and love, which will go through all these illusions. There is no need for words, no point of view to defend, or justification to give. Simply be in an unconditional embrace and you will see that this embrace will consume, through the fire of the heart, both the memories and the sufferings of the past. But it would be pointless to tell this brother or sister that he or she is not his or her past, that he or she is not his or her memories, because you will then bring him or her into the mind, into the confrontation. The light does not confront anything. It welcomes and consumes, in the fire of love. That's what you are. Take this person in your arms, listen to what he has to say to you, and eat all that, if I can say so. Absorb everything it delivers to you, which is illusory. But if, for example, as the question asks, you have a brother or sister who comes to talk to you about his or her past, if you're angry, you too are in the past. Because in the present moment, there can be no rage, there can be no confrontation, no opposition, but only welcoming what is. Don't worry about the rest. Without it, you enter the other's game and indeed, it takes you away from the truth. And it can make you angry, and most importantly, it doesn't solve anything. Just be in the embrace area. We have also been telling you this for many months. Accept what is. That's what transformation is all about. It is not about opposing, reacting, or resolving. These are false resolutions. The only true resolution is to embrace everything with the same love, without making a difference, without wanting to explain, without wanting to justify anything. That's also the natural state. And that's how you're free. No other situation will set you free. Quite the contrary. Today, it will strengthen you in suffering. But I remind you that suffering also leads to love. But you don't have to suffer any longer. Stop feeding chimeras, dreams, stop feeding the past, whatever it may be. And by past I mean not only past lives, the memories of childhood, but simply yesterday, the previous moment. It no longer exists. That's how you realize being and non-being. It is there, in the heart of the heart, that happiness, bliss and total enlightenment of what is and what you are to be found. Everything else is just childish, obstacles, limits. You're the unlimited. It doesn't require anything other than living it. And even if you have a very rich vocabulary, you will never be able to explain it, but simply express, through poetry, through simple words, this state of affairs. You see, when you have been told that agape is evident, light, full and empty, they are weak words, even for those who live it. Because it is so evident that you are not transformed, you have really disappeared. You no longer live your life, but you live life. It's not the same thing. One more question. I have been seeing channelings announcing that the event is coming, and nothing for more than 10 years. The one who says nothing does not live the event. It is there, the event, as we have been telling you for months. Ask those who are living agape, if they are not living the event. So when you say there's nothing, it still means you're waiting for an external event. But today, it is really in bad faith to say that there is nothing, if you do not see what is happening outside, at all levels. But those who live agape, already, are the event. Heaven can only conform, as I said, to the inner event. Only the one who is turned towards the outside and who hopes for an external event, to disappear, to live joy, moves away from it. And when I hear these kinds of questions, it's still someone waiting for a savior or an outside event, to put an end to their discomfort. The one who says there is no event, has not watched the news and has not watched his heart either. Because to say that the event has been announced for years, yes. But I would say the same for Christ. He came here 2,000 years ago. And he didn't change anything. We are still waiting. But Christ had said that he was not coming to bring peace, but war against illusion. And there are still some who live nothing. But I assure you that today, a brother or sister who tells you that there is no event and that nothing is happening is evidently someone who is only in his head and who is still waiting for something to happen on the outside. While whatever the real external event, which unfolds from all over the earth, The most important event is the interior. Time does not exist. But as long as you're a person and only a person, you are subject to time, impatience, hope or despair. These words mean nothing to the brother who is free. He doesn't expect anything. Although of course, the curiosity of some of these brothers shows them that the plan is going perfectly. I have already had the opportunity to explain and I repeat it today. The more time that passes in history, the more possibilities you have now to live the truth and to pass the external event without any difficulty of any kind. I therefore invite this brother and sister to look at themselves inside, rather than waiting for an external event. Because someone, a brother or sister, who says that today, is evidently still part of a scenario and a story. But certainly, somewhere a need to flee this world and therefore, from a brother or sister who is not in the present instant, but who is wandering in his mind, in projections of history. The main event is internal. You're the event. Individuals, who will shed light on his submission to suffering, his submission to time and his submission to history. Today, this is more and more evident within humanity. You have brothers and sisters waiting for the Messiah, others waiting for the return of Christ, or for the visibility of Napier, or the trumpets. But that's not going to solve their problems. On the contrary, it will come to consume them in their illusion of being attached to their person, to their mind, to a story or to a date. In Agape, there are no dates. There are energies, there is the play of the cosmos and, if you're attentive, at all levels, you're obliged to notice that there are enormous upheavals, even as we speak, on Earth. Just because in the place where you live, nothing happens elsewhere. This type of question shows, indeed, a total submission to the passing of time and therefore, a positioning error. The event has always been announced by Christ himself. And what does 2,000 years represent in relation to this false time of more than 300,000 years? Be logical. Human time has nothing to do with time even on a cosmic level. And in the end, there is no time. Everything is happening at the same time. But you cannot conceive of this, nor even accept it, you can only discover and live it. Everything else is wrong. And of course, today, with the countless brothers and sisters who live Agape, it is clear that many brothers and sisters do not live it, because they are still waiting, an external expectation, which takes place on the screen of history, rather than being focused on what happens where nothing happens, in the heart of the heart and in zero time. And it's going to become more and more visible. That's why we said that you live love or suffering. Only love is evident. Everything else is questions, everything else is questioning and everything else is illusion. And reflections such as yes, but you have to work hard, you have to feed your family hard, do not represent arguments, but only fears. Love has no use for anything in this world. And that's exactly what makes you free in this world, and nothing else. One more question. Sister, we have a request, I don't know if it's possible, to calm that person's heart. She has a son with Down syndrome 21, who is currently in a phase where he no longer wants to leave the house. What can you say to calm the sister's heart? But I can't say anything or do anything. Here too, we must accept. I don't know if it's a person or a child who has Down syndrome, no matter what brother or sister has Down syndrome who is locked up, don't try to be a savior. In Agape 2, you see clearly, really, that everything is exactly where it belongs. Do not try to save or make the other person conform to what you would like, because you never know if it is not precisely this suffering, this genetic disease, that allows him to live the truth. Don't be a savior, let what is to be done happen. And even if Agape acts on sufferings, on diseases, it is not you who decide, nor me, it is the intelligence of the light of the one who lives this disorder, whatever you see it and whatever this brother or sister says, who is affected by it. In Agape, you see that everything, absolutely everything, is very exactly in the right place, to live, precisely, the inner and outer event. I think Bida has repeated it to you, and Ebba too, many times. Everything that has to happen will happen, whatever you do. And everything that doesn't have to happen, won't happen, whatever you do. Stop wanting to change, improve, transform the dream, but rather live the exit from the dream, and everything else is done by itself, without effort. But if you maintain this kind of demands, solve this kind of problem, rather than live agape, you move away from agape. For you as well as for the other. We must accept and see, after acceptance, that everything is as it should be, that everything that is revealed at this time, in society, in all countries, is what it should be. It's a dream. Of course, as long as you have not seen that it is a dream, you still have these kinds of demands, in relation to the event, in relation to the suffering, but you are only maintaining the dream. Today, there is no freedom in that. And I believe that there are countless brothers and sisters, and not only Eba, who offer and offer agape resonances. But if in your head, in a request for agape resonance, there is something else in the request, that is, hoping for a cure, you will not live agape. Agape is not made to heal, agape is made to live the truth, and it is the truth that heals. It's not you or the other one. This is the intelligence of the light. Everything else concerns only the person, only your effects, your stories, your links, your attachments. Seek the kingdom of heaven that is within you, and all the rest will be given to you, in addition. But today, you cannot nurture the illusory dream and at the same time be the truth. It's one or the other. One is suffering, the other is resolution. But this is not a request for a resolution. It is the acceptance of agape, and the intelligence of the light, that solves it. Everything that happens, happens. You are nothing and you do nothing. This is the illusion of the ego. Just do what you have to do in this world, but how do you want to live the truth, if you are still in the request or claim rather than in the welcome and silence? Be logical. Today, there is no longer any half measure, there is no more, there are drafts there. What's going on? What's going on? Sister, I'm hot. Oh, I'm sorry. Sister, I have a nuclear power plant nearby. Laughs. Oh, it's just beginning, my friend. You'll see in an hour. Total liquefaction. Sister, yes, I can feel it. And what was I saying, by the way, me? Yes, so, I was simply saying that everything that happens in your life, inside and out, whatever you say, whatever you think, has only one purpose. To make you discover the truth. That's why you have to accept everything. And especially if you don't understand anything, and especially if you are not happy, and especially if you expect something, at any level, you are not available, you are still in the story, of the person. It's up to you to decide. You can do nothing, you can't change anything, except at the level of the person, at the level of your choices in this world. But in relation to the truth, you can't change anything. That's the way it is. Ask all those who live agape. They agreed to give themselves, to give their lives, to life. These brothers and sisters no longer have any attachment to this world, and yet they are fully present in this world. They seek no possession, they seek nothing else, only to share this love. Everything else belongs to history, everything else belongs to illusion and suffering, and will be more and more so. But it is not a punishment, it is the illumination of the light, it is the intelligence of the light, and it is the truth. You don't have to do anything, you just have to sacrifice yourself. But you don't have to kill yourself. This sacrifice is the sacrifice of the ego, the sacrifice of your life, your possessions, your ideas, your desires, for the truth that you are. That's all. That's all. Everything else only distracts you and will only hurt your body or your conscience, and will only hurt. You want a fire extinguisher, maybe? Laughs. Sister, no, thank you. Or water? Sister, it's okay, I have water, thank you. All right. And on the other hand, are you okay? Laughs. Or did she leave? Sister, yes. All right, thank you. It's all right. Sister, she says yes, I'm fine. And in the room, are you okay? Room. Yes, yes. Good. So we're going to raise the temperature a little bit more. Sister. Yes, yes, yes. Laughs. Sister. There is a lady who meant. Yes. Sister. The lady who asked about the trisomic child, she asked if she could ask a question. Yes, of course, orally, let's go. Sister. When she made this request, it was not a request to heal anything. I have understood correctly. Sister. When this child was born, he was embraced by everyone, not only by the parents, but by everyone. Everyone worked a lot with him. At the moment, her husband having passed away, she is alone with her son, who is 46 years old today. She needs to move and he does not want to move with her. Right now, he doesn't want to leave the house. She has to go alone. She has to lock her in a room in the house at that moment. In fact, she is justifying herself, but she did not want to make any request for healing. And what was the demand, then? Sister. Her heart is heavy, because she has to take care of her son alone. It is a great burden for her. I have understood correctly. Sister. So it was a clarification she wanted to make, that's all. I remind you nevertheless that what you call trisomic, whatever the age and, of course, whatever the difficulty for a parent or an accompanying person of such a child or adult, trisomic, I remind you nevertheless that trisomic is an infinite love. They are abnormal to you, but to them, you're the one who is abnormal. And a child or an adult with Down syndrome is very ill in this world, because he lives the truth. Whatever he presents or says, whatever the anomalies related to genetics, these beings are much closer to the truth than you are, whatever you judge from the outside. But this is about, you have nothing to justify, but it has nothing to do with it. Take care of or find help, on a personal level, on a world level. That's all. That's all. But there's nothing to justify. Again, I repeat, you have to accept that. And considering what I have heard, even in another language, as you said, it is only mothers suffering, perhaps a fed up to, a difficulty, but above all, there is non-acceptance. It does not mean that there is no love, but there is non-acceptance. I can only invite you to enter even deeper into yourself. Not to find a solution, because this concerns the circumstances of this world, but nevertheless, by entering even deeper into you, you will realize that this son, who is now an adult, is in total love, like all Down syndrome patients. Sister. Her difficulty is that she would like him to go with her, but, she is all alone and she is forced to lock him up, because otherwise he opens the fridge, he eats everything. But these are the person problems, history's problems. We want to hear your suffering, your difficulties, but the solution, it is inner, but also, in the circumstances of this world. But you must also accept that this is exactly what he needs, but above all what you need, to live the truth and overcome the suffering, quite simply. Change your point of view, do not try to solve what bothers you, or try to solve it with what exists in this world. But the best resolution, I promise you, is to accept and not want him to come out and come with you. If he doesn't want to. Who is right, who is wrong? It's an invitation. The sister who asked the question spoke in Portuguese. In this voice, I hear justifications and non-acceptance of the comments. As long as you're in this posture, as long as you're in this suffering, there will be no solution. The sister who asked the question continues. Sister. Christina asked if she could help the lady, so that she could move forward. Yes, because here, I believe that this sister is in permanent justification, she does not hear what is being said to her. She doesn't want to hear it. Exchange in Portuguese. That's exactly what I'm saying. Exchange in Portuguese. I hear only emotion, only suffering. Exchange in Portuguese. Sister. We can continue with the questions. Yes. Sister. It is not a question, it is a testimony. I also like the testimonies. laughs. Testimony. I feel that I have known you all my life. And I would like to share, as soon as I became aware of Jean-Luc's work, your work in 2008, 2009, what has happened in my life. It was a mix of love, pain, relationships, revelations and discoveries. However, it seems to me that I feel what many are feeling right now. We feel that we have nothing to do with this world, but at the same time, we feel that we still have a lot to give and that, in a way, despite what we are experiencing, each time more and more, the agape state, it is as if there is something inside us. Without expectation, we wait. It seems strange, this sentence, but it is a feeling that day after day we feel. On the one hand agape, joy, but strangely, an expectation. Not at all, but something that looks much bigger than we could ever dream of. It is a testimony of love, joy, and, above all, a lot of gratitude for all the fighting, laughter, that throughout these years, mainly the dear grandfather, has given us all. Thank you, for everything. I thank you for your testimony. I'm taking this opportunity to bounce back on what you said. Indeed, many of you are living agape, but you are noticing, especially at this moment, even for those who are totally free, that there are still lights being made, and passages, at the level of the throat or the heart, that show you and give you to live agape, and at the same time, great sufferings. It is the lighting of the light. What we have to do here, there too, is simply to accept, and to see just after that, that all this disappears. But if you nourish, by the question, or by the need to eliminate this suffering to find agape, there is something that has not been understood. Agape absorbs all this, but without asking for anything. It is the illumination of the light that shows you these lost behaviors, these lost sufferings, these attachments, so that precisely, from the heart of the heart, you grasp, if I can say so, more and more, the difference between what is agape, and what is not. But it is also like that the intelligence of the light that you are, will solve in its own way, certainly not comfortable for the person, in order to discuss you definitively, of all the stories, all the forms, and all the worlds. At some point, the gates will give way, if I may say so, you will accept what is, and you will laugh at your own suffering experienced at this moment. But the purpose of this is not awakening, since your awakening has already taken place if you're in agape, but it is the intelligence of the light that strengthens agape, through acceptance and incidentally, to be sure certain that you will never again be tempted to dream, in order to really disgust you, until you vomit, disgust, the history of consciousness and form. Everything is in its place, and especially what does not seem to you to be in its place. This is the hardest thing to accept, as in the previous request. And it has been said, what today perhaps still makes you suffer, like our sister just now, where in this testimony where we see the presence of both, it is precisely this lived experience, however hard it may be, that will make you laugh at yourselves. Whatever you think and whatever the state of emotion, or whatever the testimony, like this. Let it be what it is. When we tell you that you must let yourself go through, let what is going on pass, do not reject anything, do not ask for anything, except agape. It is agape that solves everything, and certainly not your little person, and certainly not your story, but that everything that happens on the screen of your consciousness, materially on this world, is exactly what you have written, yourself, to wake you up. So don't judge yourself either. Accept it. I can't tell you any better than Abba, Bidi and so many others. As long as you have not accepted, even what seems unacceptable to you, you cannot be free, because you immediately place yourself in the person's logical and normal reaction, but it still concerns the person, you are still involved, somewhere, in stories and scenarios. All these stories and scenarios, which seem problematic to you, which seem to make you suffer, have been decided by you. Do not judge anything, neither you nor the other. Just accept it. Of course, the ego cannot accept, the ego wants to seize itself, the ego wants to solve, but agape cannot function like that. You yourself create suffering, in addition to the one you wrote to live freedom. There is no guilt or responsibility. There is no better circumstance than another, but there is the most appropriate circumstance for what you have decided, especially if you reject it today. This is both the greatest challenge, but also the way you decided, before you started dreaming, to get out of the dream. Judge nothing, accept everything, and you will immediately feel the freedom of the present instant. And everything else will do itself, really. As well, for an illness, it will disappear or you will die immediately, and you will be quiet, in either case. Laughs. It's up to you. The result will always be the same. This is what I introduced from the beginning when I said, until recently, love or suffering. But today, even those who live agape, totally, truly, can only observe that there is love, that there is agape, but that there is also suffering in some cases. And it is acceptance that creates healing, and not the desire to get rid of it, to act, to react, especially in relation to those elements that are in the game of consciousness. I'm not talking about your body, I'm talking about how you feel inside yourself, as expressed in this testimony. And you will see that today we will certainly have other questions related to this form of misunderstanding between agape, which is really lived, in an increasingly real and intense way, and moments where suffering is superimposed. And that's exactly why you're going to laugh. The translator, thinking she was translating into Portuguese, repeated the sentence in French. Laughs. So we change the roles. You speak French and I translate into Portuguese. Laughs. Sister, well, we're with the Portuguese, aren't we? Or not? Laughs. Sister, oh, I'm sorry. Laughs. Good. It's very funny, isn't it? Sister, yes, yes. But I promise you, I told you, you'll die laughing. But I remind you anyway, and you will see that we will also have questions about this. The fire begins to consume you, but actually consume the body of flesh, the consciousness. But you're staying till the end, though, right? Sister, yes, yes. Thank you. And that's the way it is for everyone. And many of you feel tingling, needle blows, heat in different parts of your body. It is nothing more than consumption, by the event, the planet grill, but which begins with the body grill, and you live it. It's nothing more than that. Thermal variations, pains that suddenly appear somewhere, in hands, feet, not very pleasant sensations in the throat. All this is really related to your self-combustion. It's not a joke. Sister, I would like to point out that most of the people here have already taken off their shoes. Sister, yes, yes, yes. Laughs. We're going to heat up more and more. I just hope the hotel doesn't burn, but hey. Laughs. And it's not a pun. You see, well, wherever goes, and we, or as soon as he is announced somewhere, and we with, well, everything burns. That's normal. You have entered the process of self-dissolution, of self-combustion. It is called the fire of love, which has been described by all mystics. Except that there, it will really consume the physical body, it will consume this world, and it will consume all the worlds. And your scientists know and observe it, not only in this solar system, but in everything that is observable. Black holes everywhere, in all galaxies, are playing a video game. What was the name of that video game? One of the first. It already existed when I was incarnate. Sister. Pegman. Yes, that's it. There you go. It's Pegman. And Pegman will go faster and faster. You are both Pegman and you are also what is Eden. Quite simply. It's not a pun. That is the strict truth. You can see, moreover, and not only here because Eva is here, but from all over the planet, that things are really starting to get hot inside this body. But you're really going to consume yourself. I've never told you anything stupid. Now, we are no longer with a carrot and stick, as we say in French. That is exactly what is being lived. And the more you accept this consumption, again, it's a problem of acceptance, the more you will laugh. But if you don't accept, you'll cry. until the moment you can't tell the difference between laughter and tears. How is the expression said in French? Jean qui rit, Jean qui pleure en DT. Jean who laughs, Jean who cries. You all live it, with different intensities, and that's why when I heard earlier nothing is happening, it makes you laugh a little. But I reassure those who see or perceive that nothing is happening, or who live nothing, you will experience a fireworks display of joy and consumption. What we were saying at the time, the first will be the last will be the first, within history and the incarnation, is more relevant than ever. And the more days pass, the more weeks follow one another, and the more for those who are still in suffering, in denial, in anger, the more lightning will strike, the faster the revelation will be. And see how funny you are. Even if you cry today, ask the brothers and sisters who bear witness to the agape, it is always the same thing. Come on, we can continue with another question. And if you feel too hot, I don't want you to be consumed before the fall equinox anyway, there are still 2 days left. If you need a little break from the air, you tell me. And if not, I continue until the end of the time allotted to me, which is given to me. Sister, I have a question now, which is a question on behalf of all of us, and of all those who are watching us live, yes. Sister, friends and companions from Brazil, France, on all sides. When we organized to bring our dear Jean-Luc to Portugal, months ago, at one point we were forced to change places and I personally felt that there was a very important meaning in this change. However, there was a very strong feeling that this moment, this agape meeting, would clearly be very specific, given the date, the equinox, the moment we are living in, all the requirements necessary to achieve this meeting, fresh water, nature and withdrawal. And in this sense, because I know that many of us, the agape team, travel all over the world, we would like to have a word from you, your opinion, if possible, on the best meaning of this agape meeting in Portugal, on the one hand. On the other hand, we would also like to know a little more about Portugal's mission in this agape, in this fire, because we are very curious too. Thank you very much. Laughs. So I think you're the organizer here. Every time an agape meeting is decided, in any country, you know that it is not only EBA, JLA, but the whole intergalactic confederation is aware of it, and that, of course, wherever we have gone, and not only EBA, in physical encounters, the conditions of the countries change completely. Wherever we go, the fire of truth is revealed. Look also, what is the name of this island, the Canaries, look at Quebec, look at Spain, and all the countries that will come. You'll see immense transformations in these countries. But it's not related to head chief, to EBA, but it's related to all of you and all of us. And we do everything every time, as soon as something is decided, in the countries where it is requested, there is an intense preparatory work. First of all, personally, I work a little with the organizers, to make them work a lot. That's the service. So that at the time of the meeting, you will be in the best possible position, not only for the participants, but for all those in the country, in a particular openness. And do not see EBA here as a savior or anything, he is only translating and following the intelligence of the light. But of course, all the places where the show of the agape encounters, takes place, you can only notice, first of all for the organizers, that it is deeply different from your previous organizations. And you will see, as it happens, the meeting, and in the following weeks, huge changes. But EBA is not more involved than each of you, organizers, participants, but much larger, the whole country. All the countries that were visited noted this. And that's normal. In your speech, we would say that we anchor and reveal the intelligence of the light, but through each of you. Often, without you even being aware of it. But you can only notice that there is before passage and after our passage. I think I have said a lot in Quebec, I have said a lot in some places in EBA too, and in Portugal, it is the transatlantic influence, from Quebec to here, so that the lighthouse of humanity, Quebec, infuses this pure light throughout Europe, of which Portugal is the gateway. there's a wormhole not far from here, which is our relay. And also, you know very well that there, around where we are, not very far away, there is, of course, what you call extraterrestrial bases, not very far from here. All this is part, I remind you, of something that has been written. And we, like you, make sure that everything happens in accordance with what has been written. So yes, indeed, for individuals, of course, but for the country itself, there are immense transformations. Look at the moment when we went, the Intergalactic Confederation, to land through Quebec. It was the same week that laws were passed that considered cetaceans as individuals, and no longer as animals, and that the doors of Quebec opened wide for francophones. And the light of Quebec enters Europe via Portugal, and will soon reach Northern Europe, Belgium, before continuing the action in the Maghreb and returning to Quebec, and then traveling through Latin America, and finally, the Asian and Australian continents. All this was written, Eber knows it, that's why he can't decide anything, and he just follows what was written. You will ask him, you'll see that for him, it is very easy. From the moment you no longer have to choose, to decide, but simply to follow the intelligence of the light, your life becomes very simple. So, yes, you've been watching perfectly. In addition, you're during the equinox, therefore, particular energies, which make it possible to establish the truth and reveal it, not only for the participants here, even numerous, but, I repeat, for the whole country. You'll soon see it in this country, through what I believe you call elections. Important societal changes are taking place. So don't imagine that it's IRPA's influence that does this, but it's the influence of all of us, you who are there, you who are listening live. All of this is relentlessly logical. Everything has been written. I even delivered part of the sequence, if there is any, to you in relation to different countries. Anything to say about that? We can ask our organizer what she thinks about it. Sister, it makes sense, what she feels, that she has the opportunity to share with Jean-Luc. But she would still like to ask a little more about the waters than yesterday we crossed. Because I feel like something happened, to tell me about that too. And? Is she asking me something? Laughs. Sister, yesterday, at your request, we went for a walk on the water, a cruise. Yes, you know how important water is. Sister, yes, exactly for that reason, we would like to know if you can shed some light on what we did yesterday. You went on the water and the fire was able to unfold, the fire could manifest itself. You have felt it in your body, in your consciousness, but the whole Portuguese country will feel it very quickly too. You have sown the water from below, from the river, from the lake, and all the countries wherever it moves, there will always be water somewhere. Whether it is a swimming pool, the sea, a lake or a river. It is in order to transport, if I can say so, the information from the source code of the Great Mothers, delivered by Fehmarn, so that the sowing of the good news can travel the world. That's the way it is. I can already imagine our Belgian friends managing to find a swimming pool or a bucket. Laughs. And I see the organizers racking their brains, figuring out if they're going to buy a bucket or a pool. Laughs. But well, I think that in this country, it will be so wet by the water from above, that we won't need a swimming pool or a tub. The ground will be sufficiently wet. And I won't say any more, but you'll see. All this is not our action, it is the action of the intelligence of the light, since everything has been written. All organizers, regardless of the country, are aware of this. That's the magic of the light, the magic of agape. Come on, let's keep going. Sister, can I make a suggestion? Yes. Sister, can we stop a little and continue afterwards? With great pleasure. Sister, thank you. This will allow us to raise the heat potentiometer during this time. Laughs. To adjust some resistance elements. So I'll see you later. How long for those who are listening? Sister, 15 to 20 minutes. So, 15 to 20 minutes means 30 minutes for the Portuguese. Laughs. In Spain, that means 1 hour. Laughs. In France, that means 5 minutes. Laughs. Sister, they have 30 minutes, then. Let's say, between 15 minutes and 30 minutes. I'll see you later. Through Jean-Luc Young. The Transformations. English translation by AIVANHOV.